Hi, my name's Daryl, and here's your Jeep news for January 15th. So in our first story, it involves a couple of interviews with Tim Kuniskis. So if you don't know, Tim Kuniskis was previously Dodge Ram CEO. He left the company after some issues with Carlos Tavares and some leadership things and disagreements, and he decided to come back basically to take over Ram as CEO. And so now he's sort of doing trucks. But he had a long career at Chrysler. He was kind of known as the godfather of the Hemi V8, and so he loves performance. And the first interview and the headline is he isn't ready to bring the V8 back yet, but let's get into this a little bit. And we'll go down to the third paragraph where he had an interview with Road and Track magazine, and he said the big issue is we took away a fundamental American thing. Americans love to have choice, and when you take something away from them, they revolt, whether it makes sense or not. And he says, it's like you've taken our American flag away. Screw you, basically, is what they say. And so a lot of folks that are Mopar fans and big Ram and Dodge fans are disappointed that the fact that the Hemi V8 isn't available anymore. Now, he's saying that he isn't sure that taking away the Hemi V8 is really the issue with sales. He blames a lot of it based on the trims that they had available, as well as like the Ram 1500 RHO not being available. You know, Tim actually had the RHO on order, and I think as even just a couple of weeks ago, he still didn't have it yet. So he says, basically production problems were the issue and not necessarily not having the V8 available. But let's look at the second story where, this comes to us from Mopar Insiders, and they're leaving the door open for the V8, but he wants folks to understand that it's going to take some time if they make the decision to do this. So if we look at this third paragraph here, Kuniskis says that the biggest obstacle lies in the Ram 1500's updated Atlantis electrical architecture, which isn't compatible with a 5.7 liter Hemi. And he says also the previous manufacturer that had manufactured the engine isn't no longer manufacturing it with the e-torque available, which is kind of what they need in order to integrate with that current electrical architecture. So restarting production would require reactivating the supplier lines, re-engineering things, and it's going to take a bit of time in order to do that. And so I think before Dodge or Ram makes the decision to whole hog start doing that, they're probably going to look a little bit on the numbers once production of the Ram 1500 is fully running, just to see where sales are, and also how that Hurricane Straight 6 engine, how it performs. So he really wants to see how that whole architecture performs before they make any serious decisions and go a different direction. Now, I don't think he's happy with the direction that they made. Nevertheless, that's kind of where they are right now, and to reverse course at this point, it would be difficult to do. And in our last interview from Tim Kuniskis, this one talks about kind of why he retired and why he came back. And basically, a lot of folks said that it was because of disagreements that Kuniskis had with Carlos Tavares, and he just kind of wanted to set the record straight a little bit. And so he says that, no, I was totally fine with Tavares. He stated, I didn't agree with him on a lot of stuff, but that's not unique to him. That's just my personality. So obviously he's got a very strong personality and very strong feelings about things, and it's not unusual to have disagreements with his bosses, whoever they might be. So, he said it wasn't based on that or personal conflicts. It's the fact that he just kind of needed a break. And then, when we go on vacation, it's like, yeah, this isn't really what I thought it was going to be. I need to get back to work and get back in the fight. And that's really why he wanted to come back. So he got a call from John Elkann saying, hey, would you be willing to come back? And he said, sure, I will. So yeah, good stuff on Tim Kuniskis there. So our next news story involves John Elkann, who is currently chair of the board of directors of Stellantis, and he's also chair of the kind of a leadership committee for the group that is running Stellantis until a CEO is chosen. And so John Elkann accepted a position, a director position, on the board of directors of Meta, which is Facebook. So yeah, real interesting there. He says he's honored to contribute to the future of one of the most significant companies. I look forward to bringing my global experience and long-term perspective to the board as Meta continues to shape and push the next frontiers of innovation and technology. So a lot of things are happening. So in the tech sector, of course, we have Elon Musk, who has really cozied up with the President Trump, and we also have Mark Zuckerberg, who's now cozied up with President Trump. And so now John Elkann cozies up to Facebook and Mark Zuckerberg. And it's not just that. Stellantis recently, there was news that they were donating $1 million to the Trump inaugural fund, as well as Hyundai. So if you don't know, so Hyundai, they do a lot of their manufacturing in Mexico. And supposedly they want to get kind of a one-on-one with Trump to talk about the tariffs that he's proposed for Mexico. And of course, Stellantis, right, they do a lot of their manufacturing also in Mexico as well as Canada. So there are a lot of auto manufacturers that are trying to really get on the good side of Trump and kind of lobby him, maybe perhaps restrain a little bit on the tariffs in regards to the auto industry. And we're going to see what happens there. It sure is going to be interesting what happens in the next few months. Now in our next news story, let's talk about the Jeep RECONN EV. So seems like they are going to start manufacturing the Jeep RECONN EV earlier than expected. This is, I believe, a 2026 model, but they're going to start manufacturing supposedly at the Toluca plant in Mexico on Monday, February 24th of 2025, which is significantly earlier than initially expected. So one of the things that they did talk about in this article by Mopar Insiders is that this is going to be an all hands on deck operation because they don't want the kind of issues that plagued the Dodge Charger Daytona and the Wagoneer S, and they want it to be a much smoother rollout on the RECONN. So I really haven't heard much about the Dodge Charger Daytona. I mean, I think they're starting to be shipped to dealers, but I haven't heard of many owners actually taking possession of the vehicle, as well as the Wagoneer S. I think they're only shipping a few out because of all the software problems that they had, and the Dodge Charger Daytona also had so many issues. Well, they just had bad reviews, and then they had issues with them bricking, and then they had software updates that they had to do. Total mess. So I don't know how they're going to learn from those problems by launching the RECONN EV early. Doesn't make a whole lot of sense to me. Nevertheless, they are talking about also this being a hybrid potentially. So they're thinking about, or there's discussions about it featuring a 1.6 liter turbocharged inline four with hybrid technology. Now, really what I think they should be focusing on with this vehicles, as well as, you know, a lot of their off-roaders and a lot of their big SUVs, is to really focus on that Ram Charger with the STLA frame architecture, with the Pentastar V6 acting as a generator, a range extender for the electric motors. They really need to be looking at Scout Motors and what they're doing. And most of the folks that are interested in the Scout are interested in the Scout Harvester, which is their plug-in hybrid range extending version of the product. So great that they're looking at hybridized technology for this vehicle as opposed to EV only, but I think they would be smart to focus on a range extending vehicle in a lot of their different off-road products, as well as their large SUVs and trucks. Now, my last bit of news, and so if I go in here and if I do a new search and I look for news, because this is what I do every day, news on Jeep Gladiator 4xe. So there is nothing on the 4xe. Stuff back in 2023. So what in the world is going on with the Jeep Gladiator 4xe? You know, obviously they've had problems with the Wrangler and the Grand Cherokee 4xe with issues with the battery separators, had a bunch of recalls. So I think their intention initially was probably to just stick that drivetrain into the Gladiator, but maybe they've recognized some issues and maybe they don't want to continue using that drivetrain and they want to switch to something else. Or maybe the Gladiator, maybe they're going to decide just to have it go away. I don't know. So if anybody knows or has heard anything about the Gladiator 4xe, you know, that's something, you know, I know that with the Wrangler and the Grand Cherokee, I have had issues with the 4xe, but it was actually something I was thinking about with the Gladiator 4xe, just because I think that Gladiator is a little bit underpowered with the V6 Pentastar, so I think it needs a little bit of more torque, a little bit more horsepower for towing duties, and I was kind of excited about that 4xe Gladiator, but yeah, I certainly haven't heard anything about it. So if you do know anything, please comment. And this is Daryl with your Jeep News, and I hope to see you in the next video very soon.